FDR gets elected to office, and like we talked about in class, his program's called the New Deal. And in the first 100 days of his getting elected, he creates the Emergency Banking Act, the EBA, which is a government body that will inspect the health of banks. And he also creates something that you see on banks all the time today called the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And that insures the money that you put in the bank and makes sure, even if the bank goes out of business, that you will get your money back. The federal government will cover that with insurance. He also creates the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC, which is still around to regulate the stock market and make it fair, and the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, which is now called FEMA, not FERA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration today. And it sends money to local agencies when there's emergencies, like the case of this flooding here in Alabama, or building this drainage system for flooding in, I believe, Milwaukee. Public works programs are what the New Deal is going to be built on. These are government-funded projects to build public facilities. They fill a need for parks and buildings and mail offices or post offices, but they also give jobs to people, put money in their pockets to spur the economy. He creates the Civil Works Administration. That's where the Civil Works Administration makes roads and parks and airports. Here they are building a school. He also creates the Civil Conservation Corps, the CCC, which maintains forests and beaches and parks. Here they are in Colorado. And they pretty much, the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, they live like the Army. They live in barracks while they're working on these big projects. And lots of state parks in Indiana were built during this time. The National Recovery Administration is the government body that is going to regulate wages, make sure they're fair. Make sure working conditions are good, make sure prices are fair, and make sure production doesn't go into surplus. And you are encouraged in this era to only go shop at businesses that have the NRA code on the door. The Public Works Administration makes large projects like the Grand Coulee Dam, pictured here, or the Triborough Bridge in New York City, pictured here. These are huge projects. They did not do the Empire State Building, but that would have been the size of the project. You can see how big the Grand Coulee Dam is if you look down at the parking lot here, tiny little cars. It is an enormous structure. He also created the Federal Housing Administration, which we still have today, and that is supposed to improve housing standards, make safer housing regulations for building them, and insure mortgages so that if the bank goes out of business, you won't lose your mortgage or your house. He also created the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. This was to make farm prices for farmers and their crops fair. He actually made sure that those prices were more than they were before the Depression. He also paid farmers not to grow certain crops so that there wouldn't be a surplus of those crops, and would lower the supply. It would lower the supply of those crops and raise the prices of those crops because there was less of them. Also in the New Deal, Tennessee Valley Authority, still around today, created a series of dams. And dams are great because a dam is built to create electricity. There are huge turbines inside a dam that turn when the water goes through the dam, so it creates cheap power. Dams also create flood control because they will regulate the amount of water going through a water system. They can make it less water. They can open up the dam, make it more water. And it also creates recreation opportunities by making huge lakes or reservoirs, and also creates beach or lakefront property. People go there to fish, to water ski, do all that kind of stuff. Families go there to picnic. But the big bonus is the cheap power. First woman in a president's cabinet was Secretary of Labor Frances Perkins, the first woman ever brought into this cabinet by the President of the United States. He also began to hire hundreds of African Americans. Since FDR was disabled, Eleanor often had to travel, the First Lady had to travel for him around the country and report back to FDR. And there she is with a bunch of school kids. End of part 1.